Picture yourself walking along a familiar stretch of coastline, maybe somewhere you've visited on vacation, a place where you've felt the sand between your toes and heard the crash of waves along the shore. It feels timeless, eternal, but what if I told you that right below where you stand, hidden under layers of water and sediment, lies an entire lost world? A city once vibrant and alive, planned and built with astonishing skill by a civilization long forgotten. These ancient coastal cities, now submerged and silent, hold blueprints that could reshape everything we know about human ingenuity, adaptation, and survival. These aren't just piles of rubble or scattered ruins. We're talking about fully realized urban plans, streets laid out in precise grids, harbors engineered for massive ships, temples aligned with the stars, and drainage systems so advanced they rival modern infrastructure. Each of these submerged cities tells a story not just of brilliant design, but of a society that thrived against the odds, only to be slowly, or sometimes suddenly, swallowed by the sea. Time, climate shifts, geological forces, they conspired to hide these marvels from view, burying entire chapters of human history beneath the waves. Today, we're going on a journey to uncover those chapters. We'll explore how cutting-edge technology allows archaeologists to map these underwater worlds without ever touching a stone, and why these discoveries resonate so powerfully today, in an age when sea levels are rising and coastal cities face uncertain futures. This is more than a history lesson. It's a bridge across millennia, a chance to learn from the past as we navigate the challenges of our own time. So come with us as we dive into the mysteries of the deep, tracing the hidden blueprints that connect us to the dreams, the triumphs, and the resilience of those who came before us. But how exactly does an entire city vanish beneath the waves? It's a process far more intricate than a simple sinking feeling. Imagine the ground beneath a bustling port city, not as a solid, unmoving foundation, but as a dynamic, shifting stage. One of the most powerful forces at play is tectonic activity. In regions like the Mediterranean, the Earth's plates are constantly grinding against one another. This movement can cause the land to gradually subside, lowering entire coastlines centimeter by centimeter over centuries. In other cases, a sudden, catastrophic earthquake can liquefy the soil, causing structures to be swallowed in a matter of minutes. Then there's the immense weight of the cities themselves. Ancient settlements built on river deltas, like some of those in Mesopotamia, were constructed on layers of soft silt and sediment. The sheer mass of their stone buildings over generations compressed this ground, slowly pressing the city downward relative to the sea. This geological dance is partnered with a massive climatic partner, the melting of ice ages. For thousands of years following the last glacial maximum, vast ice sheets that covered continents melted, releasing enormous volumes of water back into the oceans. This global sea level rise was not a gentle, uniform lift. It was a relentless, creeping inundation that would have been barely noticeable in a single human lifetime, but across generations, it became an unstoppable force. Coastlines retreated, and low-lying settlements that were once safe and prosperous found themselves increasingly vulnerable to storm surges and eventually permanent flooding. This wasn't a sign of a civilization's failure, but rather a slow-motion environmental shift that they simply could not outpace with the technology of their time. Human ingenuity itself sometimes played a role in this submergence. The ancient practice of extracting groundwater for a growing population could lead to a phenomenon known as land subsidence. By drawing water out of underground aquifers, the soil above compacts and sinks, much like squeezing water out of a sponge and watching it shrink. Some historians theorize that this very process may have contributed to the sinking of certain coastal areas, a poignant reminder that our own adaptations to live in a place can sometimes inadvertently lead to its loss. The way a city is submerged also dramatically affects what remains for us to find today. A gradual, slow rise in sea level might allow a community to abandon its home in an orderly fashion, taking their most valuable possessions with them. But a sudden, violent event like the tsunami that likely struck the ancient city of Pavloptery in Greece can freeze a moment in time. In these instances, the rapid burial under layers of protective silt and sand can create astonishingly intact time capsules. Streets remain undisturbed, pottery sits where it was last used, and the very layout of the city, its blueprint, is preserved in remarkable detail, waiting silently under the water for millennia to tell its story. Now let's journey to some of the most captivating examples of these underwater metropolises, starting with a city that seems pulled straight from myth. Off the western coast of India, in the Gulf of Combat, lies the ancient city of Dwaker. For centuries, it was considered just a legend, the magnificent capital of the Hindu god Krishna, described in sacred texts as a city of gold and precious stones, protected by towering gates and ultimately claimed by the sea. Then, marine archaeologists made a stunning discovery: massive stone structures including walls, pillars, and what appear to be the foundations of a grand city lying beneath the waves. The layout suggests a highly organized port with evidence of a sophisticated dockyard designed to handle large vessels and tidal fluctuations. Finding Dwaker was like watching a fairy tale solidify into history, proving that behind many legends often lies a kernel of truth, a real, advanced civilization whose architectural genius was swallowed by the ocean. Traveling west to the Mediterranean, we find another marvel, the lost city of Thonus Heracleion off the coast of Egypt. For over 1,000 years, this city was Egypt's main international trading port, a bustling, wealthy gateway where Greek merchants and Egyptian priests once mingled. Then, around the 8th century, possibly due to a combination of rising sea levels and the unstable, clay-rich soil liquefying during an earthquake, it simply vanished beneath the waves. Its discovery in the early 2000s was a watershed moment. Archaeologists mapping the site found a breathtakingly complete blueprint of a major ancient port. They uncovered the remains of an enormous temple dedicated to the god Amun-Jereb, colossal statues of pharaohs standing guard, dozens of sunken ships still tied to their moorings, and even gold coins and personal jewelry, all preserved in a silent, underwater museum. The city's layout, with its grand canals and central religious district, reveals a master plan designed to project power and facilitate trade on a massive scale. Not all sunken cities are the stuff of grand empires. Some, like Pavloptery in southern Greece, offer a much more intimate, everyday glimpse into the ancient world. Dating back an astonishing 5,000 years, Pavloptery is the oldest known submerged city in the world. What makes it so extraordinary is its complete urban plan, which remains perfectly visible on the seabed. As you fly over it or view it through sonar imagery, you can clearly see a network of streets laid out in a grid pattern, the foundations of buildings, courtyards, and even tombs. This wasn't a haphazard collection of structures, it was a carefully planned town. Archaeologists have identified distinct neighborhoods, a central market area, and a complex water management system. The blueprint of Pavloptery suggests a society that valued order, community, and thoughtful design centuries before the glory of classical Greece, forcing us to rewrite our understanding of early urban development. For a look at ancient luxury lost to geological forces, we dive into the blue waters of the Bay of Naples in Italy, where the Roman city of Baye lies submerged. This was the Las Vegas or Monte Carlo of the Roman elite, a lavish resort town where emperors and senators built extravagant villas to enjoy thermal springs and indulge in decadent parties. Unlike cities lost to slow sea level rise, Baye was victim to a fascinating and relentless volcanic process called bradysism, where the Earth's surface slowly rises and falls due to magma chamber activity deep below. Over centuries, a large section of this coastline gradually sank beneath the Mediterranean, preserving its opulence in incredible detail. Swimming through Baye today, you can glide over intricate mosaic floors, through the arches of a grand villa, and past marble statues that once decorated sumptuous gardens. Its underwater blueprint is a map of Roman leisure, showcasing advanced engineering like heated baths and sophisticated hydraulic systems, all now home to schools of fish. And then there are the mysteries that still spark fierce debate, pushing the boundaries of what we think we know. Off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, a massive underwater formation known as the Yonaguni Monument continues to divide experts. Its sheer geometric terraces, sharp right angles, and seemingly carved steps look unmistakably like a man-made structure, perhaps a ceremonial platform or the foundation of an ancient pyramid. Some geologists argue it is a perfectly natural formation, created by seismic activity and the powerful currents that scour the sandstone. Others point to its precise features and its alignment with other known archaeological sites, suggesting it could be the remnant of a lost civilization from a time when sea levels were far lower. Whether natural or man-made, Yonaguni captivates our imagination, representing the tantalizing possibility that there are still countless undiscovered blueprints hidden beneath the waves, each holding a piece of our planet's forgotten history. But how do we actually begin to see what has been invisible for centuries? It's not as simple as just diving down and brushing away the sand. These sites are incredibly fragile, and the slightest disturbance can erase invaluable clues forever. That's why modern underwater archaeology is less about treasure hunting and more about high-tech, non-invasive detective work, using an incredible array of tools to map the unseen with stunning precision. One of the most fundamental tools in this arsenal is sonar, or sound navigation and ranging. Think of it like a sophisticated echolocation system. A vessel or an autonomous underwater vehicle will slowly traverse a grid pattern, sending pulses of sound waves down toward the seabed. These sound waves bounce off objects and structures buried in the sediment, and by measuring the time it takes for the echo to return, a computer can build a detailed three-dimensional map of the seafloor. This is how researchers first identified the strange, geometric shapes of the Yonaguni Monument and outlined the vast, sprawling city plan of Heracleion. It allows them to see the forest before they ever examine the trees, for areas that are too shallow for large vessels or are now on land but were once underwater. Archaeologists turn to its cousin, LIDAR, which uses laser light instead of sound. Often deployed from aircraft, LIDAR can penetrate clear water and even thin vegetation to map the ground surface beneath. This technology has been revolutionary in places like the Caribbean, revealing the footprints of ancient settlements and agricultural fields that were flooded by rising seas, giving us a complete picture of how these communities used their entire coastal landscape, not just the parts that are now submerged. Once a promising anomaly is identified by these broad surveys, the investigation becomes more focused. This is where tools like magnetometers come into play. Every object on Earth has a unique magnetic signature, and anything made by humans like a fired clay pot, a kiln, or even a stone wall built with iron-rich mortar creates a tiny disturbance in the planet's magnetic field. A magnetometer towed behind a boat can detect these minute variations, essentially allowing archaeologists to see structures and artifacts buried deep under layers of sand and silt without ever putting a shovel in the ground. It's like having a sixth sense that can pinpoint exactly where to look. Then come the eyes, underwater drones, or remotely operated vehicles (ROV), equipped with high-definition cameras and powerful lights, are sent down to investigate these targets. They can hover motionless in strong currents, navigate through tight, fragile ruins, and stream crystal-clear video back to researchers on a support ship. They provide the crucial close-up view, capturing the intricate details of a carved inscription on a sunken statue, the construction technique of an ancient wall, or the exact arrangement of artifacts on the seafloor. This visual evidence is what turns a magnetic anomaly into a confirmed wall and a sonar shadow into an identified shipwreck. All of this data, the sonar maps, the magnetic readings, the thousands of photographs, is then fed into powerful computers. Using a process called photogrammetry, software can analyze overlapping images from the ROVs to build photorealistic three-dimensional models of the entire site. The team working on Thonus Heracleion used this method to incredible effect, virtually reconstructing the city's grand temple complex, its sprawling harbor with dozens of sunken ships, and its network of canals. They could then explore this digital twin from every angle, measuring distances, testing theories about how people moved through the city, and piecing together the urban blueprint as if the water had been magically drained away. This virtual reconstruction doesn't just preserve the site, it allows us to step back in time and walk the streets of a city lost for over a millennium, bridging the gap between the ancient world and our own in a way that was once impossible. Decoding these submerged blueprints is like discovering a masterclass in urban design taught by the ancients themselves. Their approach wasn't about conquering nature, but about collaborating with it, weaving their cities into the very fabric of the coastline. Take harbor engineering, for instance. At the Greek city of Pavloptery, archaeologists found evidence of a carefully designed port facility. The builders didn't just drop a pier into the water. They utilized a natural sandbank to create a protected lagoon, a calm haven for boats that was sheltered from the open sea's unpredictable waves. This wasn't an isolated example. In ancient Dwaker, the city's massive stone jetty and dock were strategically positioned to harness tidal currents, making it easier for ships to enter and exit the harbor. These weren't just ports, they were sophisticated maritime interfaces designed for efficiency and resilience, showing a profound understanding of local hydrodynamics that many modern engineers would admire. The intelligence of these plans extends far beyond the waterfront. The very streets of these cities tell a story of thoughtful, purposeful design. In Pavloptery, the 5,000-year-old grid of streets and buildings suggests a level of premeditated urban planning we once thought only existed millennia later. But it wasn't just about order, it was about creating a livable environment. Streets were often aligned to capture the prevailing sea breezes, creating a natural ventilation system that would have cooled homes and public spaces in an era long before air conditioning. This alignment frequently served a dual purpose, with major thoroughfares and significant structures oriented toward celestial events like the solstice sunrise or the position of certain stars. This fusion of practical comfort with spiritual and astronomical significance reveals a world where daily life and cosmic order were intimately connected, all etched into the city's foundational blueprint. Perhaps most impressively, these ancient planners were masters of water management in an environment where fresh water was precious and the threat of flooding was constant. Before a single foundation stone was laid, they had to solve the puzzle of sustaining a dense population. the solution was often an intricate network of freshwater channels and drainage systems that put modern infrastructure to shame. At the Neolithic site of Atlet off the coast of Israel, which dates back over 9,000 years, engineers constructed a sophisticated well system to access freshwater that was mixing with the rising sea. They built stone walls to protect this vital resource from saltwater intrusion, a challenge we still grapple with today. In larger cities, clay pipes and graded channels were buried beneath streets to efficiently carry away wastewater and storm runoff, preventing flooding and protecting public health. This deep understanding of hydrology allowed these communities to not just survive, but to thrive for centuries in demanding coastal zones. What emerges from studying these sunken plans is a powerful lesson in sustainable resilience. These cities were not imposed upon the landscape, they were an extension of it. Their longevity wasn't a matter of luck but of design, a design that worked with environmental forces rather than against them. They used local, durable materials that could withstand a saline environment. They integrated natural defenses like reefs and elevation changes. They created systems for managing resources that were built to last. In our current era of climate change and rising sea levels, this ancient wisdom feels startlingly relevant. We are now rediscovering the value of green infrastructure and living shorelines, concepts these forgotten engineers understood intuitively. Their buried blueprints are more than historical curiosities. They are a source of inspiration, offering timeless strategies for building communities that are not only ingenious but enduring, proving that the most advanced design is often one that listens to the whispers of the natural world. This profound connection between past and present becomes startlingly clear when we examine the case of Atlet, a Neolithic village off the coast of Israel. This settlement, dating back over 9,000 years, provides one of the most compelling and haunting examples of a community confronting environmental change. Archaeologists discovered a well-preserved blueprint of a thriving village, stone houses, a ceremonial standing stone circle, and even the skeletons of its inhabitants, all lying on the seafloor. But the most telling discovery was the state of their freshwater well. Analysis showed that the village's vital water source had become contaminated with salt water, a direct result of rising sea levels slowly infiltrating the aquifer. The evidence suggests the community fought back, constructing elaborate stone walls in a desperate attempt to shield their well from the encroaching sea. Ultimately, they lost that battle. The site shows no signs of violent conflict. Instead, it presents a scene of orderly but definitive abandonment. It is a powerful, silent testament to a society that recognized the threat, attempted to adapt with the technology they had, but was finally forced to retreat from a changing climate they could not control. This ancient story echoes with an uncomfortable familiarity in the 21st century. Today, coastal megacities from Mumbai to Miami, from Shanghai to New Orleans, are on the front lines of a very similar crisis, though on a vastly larger scale. The mechanisms are different. Our sea level rise is driven by the rapid burning of fossil fuels and the thermal expansion of ocean water. But the fundamental challenge remains the same: how to survive when the water is rising. Projections from climate scientists indicate that even under moderate scenarios, we could see global sea levels rise by over half a meter by the end of this century, putting hundreds of millions of people at risk and threatening trillions of dollars worth of infrastructure. The parallels are undeniable, creating a direct narrative thread that stretches from the abandoned wells of the Neolithic to the threatened seawalls of the modern era. The critical lesson from these sunken cities isn't just that environments change, it's in the varied responses of the societies that faced them. Some, like the inhabitants of Atlet, appear to have managed a managed retreat, preserving their community by moving inland. Others may have succumbed more suddenly to catastrophic events. Their experiences offer a long-term laboratory for modern urban planners and policymakers. We can study which strategies worked and which failed. For instance, the ancient city of Pavloptery in Greece shows evidence of being rebuilt and reinforced multiple times after seismic events and tsunamis, demonstrating a resilience and a determination to stay in place. Conversely, the gradual abandonment of other sites suggests that sometimes the most sustainable option is strategic relocation, a concept we now call managed retreat, which is being seriously considered for vulnerable communities in Alaska, Louisiana, and elsewhere. This historical perspective forces us to move beyond short-term thinking and consider truly long-range adaptive solutions. Modern engineering often focuses on hard defenses, massive seawalls, and barriers. But the ancient blueprints often show a softer, more integrated approach, working with nature rather than against it. The sophisticated water management and natural harbor enhancements we see in these old plans inspire contemporary concepts like living shorelines, which use wetlands, oysters, reefs, and mangroves to absorb wave energy and reduce erosion. By looking back, we can innovate forward, designing coastal cities that are dynamic and flexible, capable of evolving with the environment instead of simply resisting it until they potentially break. Ultimately, these submerged ruins serve as both a warning and a guide. They are stark, physical proof that climate change is not a future abstraction but a persistent force in human history. They warn us of the consequences of ignoring environmental shifts or responding too slowly, but they also guide us, offering a repository of knowledge and a testament to human ingenuity in the face of adversity. The forgotten architects of these sunken cities were solving problems of sustainability and resilience that we are only now beginning to fully appreciate. Their blueprints, preserved beneath the waves, are not just maps of lost worlds. They are urgent messages from the past, reminding us that the fate of our coastal civilizations has always been, and will always be, intertwined with the sea. Beyond their stone and mortar, these underwater sites are unparalleled windows into the everyday rhythms of ancient life, preserving moments frozen in time by the very disasters that concealed them. While grand temples and harbors show us the public face of these cities, it is the smaller, more personal discoveries that truly connect us to the people who walked those streets. A pottery workshop in Pavloptery with kilns and unfinished vessels still in place tells a story of local industry and craft. The layout of a home with its separate cooking and living areas offers clues about family structure and domestic life. Even something as simple as the wear pattern on a stone step, polished smooth by countless footsteps, speaks to the generations of ordinary people who lived, worked, and raised families in these communities, making these blueprints feel less like archaeological diagrams and more like maps of lived human experience. The artifacts recovered from the silt are the true treasure troves of cultural insight, acting as direct messengers from the past. A clay tablet inscribed with trade records from a sunken Mesopotamian port doesn't just list goods. It reveals a complex economic system detailing contracts, debts, and the flow of commodities like timber, copper, and precious oils across vast distances. Similarly, the personal belongings found in these cities, a sailor's wooden comb, a child's toy, a chef's set of bronze knives, transform anonymous history into relatable human stories. These objects were once touched, valued, and used by individuals, and their preservation underwater allows us a tangible, emotional connection to their long-lost owners, bridging a gap of thousands of years with startling immediacy. Perhaps the most significant revelation from these sites is the overwhelming evidence of ancient globalization. The discovery at Thonus Heracleion is a perfect case study. Here, archaeologists found a stone slab, a stele, inscribed with a decree from Pharaoh Nectanebo I. Crucially, the text was written in both ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and ancient Greek, a clear indication that the city was a bustling multicultural hub where two great civilizations met, traded, and negotiated. This wasn't an isolated find. The mud of the harbor held the wrecks of ships from across the Mediterranean, their cargo holds still containing not only Egyptian goods but also ceramics from Cyprus, amphorae from Phoenicia, and jewelry that echoed styles from Anatolia. The very blueprint of the city, with its dedicated quarters for foreign merchants and temples that may have incorporated foreign deities, reflects a sophisticated, cosmopolitan society that actively embraced and managed its diverse population. This interconnectedness challenges the outdated notion of ancient civilizations as isolated, independent entities. The sunken cities prove they were dynamic nodes in a vast, international network. The flow of goods necessitated a flow of ideas, technologies, and beliefs. A new sail design developed in one port could spread across the sea within a few seasons. Architectural innovations, religious rituals, and even culinary trends would have traveled along these maritime highways. A city's layout, with its wide avenues leading from the foreign traders' docks to the central market and then to administrative buildings, was physically designed to facilitate this exchange, making these places ancient versions of modern global financial centers or cultural melting pots. Ultimately, the cultural significance of these submerged blueprints lies in their power to rewrite our shared human story. They provide irrefutable, physical proof that cross-cultural interaction is not a modern phenomenon but a fundamental and ancient driver of human progress. The cooperation and exchange that occurred in these coastal hubs fueled innovation, fostered diplomatic relations, and created a level of shared culture across the Mediterranean and beyond. By studying the artifacts and the urban plans of these lost cities, we don't just learn about a single civilization, we learn about the dialogues between them. We see that our ancestors were not so different from us. They sought connection, trade, and understanding across vast distances, building a complex, interdependent world whose echoes we can still feel today. This fascinating dance between myth and history is perhaps nowhere more iconic than with the legendary city of Atlantis. For over 2,000 years, the story told by the Greek philosopher Plato of an advanced island nation that angered the gods and was swallowed by the sea in a single day and night was considered a philosophical fable, a moral tale about hubris. Yet, modern geology and archaeology suggest that Plato's story, written around 360 BCE, might have been inspired by a very real and catastrophic event. The island of Santorini, known in antiquity as Thera, was once the heart of the sophisticated Minoan civilization. Around the year 1600 BCE, it was torn apart by one of the largest volcanic eruptions in human history. The explosion was so colossal it generated towering tsunamis that would have ravaged the nearby island of Crete, the center of Minoan power. The geological layers tell a story of a thriving coastal society instantly buried under meters of volcanic ash, its palaces and harbors obliterated. This real-world disaster, which would have been a searing memory for generations across the Mediterranean, aligns strikingly with the core elements of Plato's tale, an advanced civilization brought low by a cataclysmic natural event and lost beneath the waves. It demonstrates how a massive, traumatic historical event can be distilled over centuries into a powerful myth, its origins in truth slowly fading into the background of a great story. Across the world, the ancient Indian epic texts, the Mahabharata and the Puranas, describe the magnificent city of Dwaker, a fortress of gold and silver with immense wealth and advanced technology, ruled by the god hero Krishna. The texts recount its eventual submersion into the sea following a great war. For a long time, this too was considered purely allegorical. That is, until marine archaeologists began finding something extraordinary off the modern coast of Dwaker. Their discoveries did not uncover a city of literal gold, but they did find something perhaps more valuable: the remains of a massive, well-fortified port city dating back thousands of years. They unearthed stone anchors, the foundations of large structures, and artifacts that confirmed the site was a major maritime center, exactly as the legends had described. The correlation was undeniable. The stories preserved a memory of a real, powerful coastal kingdom that did, in fact, succumb to the rising sea. The myth acted as a cultural compass, pointing researchers toward a historical truth that had been waiting underwater all along, proving that these narratives are often more than just stories. They are oral histories passed down through countless generations, preserving the memory of a lost homeland. This guiding power of legend is a potent tool in the archaeologist's kit. The persistent stories told by indigenous peoples in the Amazon basin about a lost, golden city deep in the jungle, which they called Kuhakugu, directly inspired the infamous quests of explorer Percy Fawcett for a place he dubbed the Lost City of Z. While Fawcett himself vanished, later expeditions, using those very oral histories as a map, actually did uncover the remains of large, sophisticated settlements with advanced earthworks and complex road systems, showing that the legends were based on the real existence of a significant pre-Columbian civilization. The stories were not fictional. They were a form of historical record, a way of keeping the knowledge of a place alive long after the last stones were reclaimed by the jungle. This shows us that when a community tells a story about a great city from long ago, it is always worth listening, for it may hold the key to a discovery that rewrites our understanding of the past. Ultimately, these submerged blueprints are not just collections of stone and pottery. They are powerful cultural touchstones. They exist at the intersection of tangible evidence and collective memory. A sunken city is a physical fact that can be mapped and measured, but it is also a story that has been dreamed about, feared, and longed for. The legend gives the ruin its soul and its significance, transforming it from a mere archaeological site into a symbol of human aspiration, tragedy, and resilience. It reminds us that our drive to build, to create magnificent things, is always accompanied by the stories we tell about ourselves, stories of greatness and of loss. These narratives, whether etched on clay tablets or whispered around a fire, are as much a part of our historical blueprint as the foundation stones of any forgotten city, shaping our imagination and our quest to understand where we come from for centuries. The tools we use to uncover these lost worlds have undergone a revolution as profound as the discoveries themselves. We've moved far beyond the era of hard hat divers feeling their way through the murk into a time of digital clarity where entire cities can be mapped from the surface with millimeter accuracy. At the forefront of this charge are autonomous underwater vehicles, or a UVS. These are not your typical remote-controlled subs. They are sophisticated, self-piloting robots pre-programmed with a survey grid. Freed from the limitations of a tether and human endurance, an UV can glide methodically for days on end, its array of sensors painting a comprehensive picture of the seafloor across vast, previously unreachable areas. It's like having a meticulous, unblinking cartographer working tirelessly in the depths, gathering the raw data that forms the foundation of every modern underwater map. But a map of shapes is just the beginning. The true magic happens when we bring these shapes to life with photorealistic detail, and that's the domain of three-dimensional photogrammetry. This technique is nothing short of alchemy. Archaeologists use underwater drones to capture thousands of overlapping high-resolution photographs of a site, every statue, every amphora, every section of wall. Powerful software then analyzes these images, identifying common points and stitching them together into an incredibly precise three-dimensional digital model. The result is not a cartoonish animation. It's a perfect, measurable, navigable facsimile of the ruin. Researchers can zoom in to examine the tool marks on a stone block, take measurements between structures, or even simulate seawater clarity and lighting conditions from different times of day. This technology doesn't just record a site, it digitally preserves it, allowing for infinite study without ever risking damage to the fragile original. The exploration has now moved to a microscopic level, revealing secrets that are completely invisible to the naked eye. Scientists are now employing a technique called sediment DNA analysis. By taking core samples of the seabed and the silt that has settled within ancient containers, they can extract minuscule traces of genetic material that have survived for millennia. From this, they can identify the types of plants that were cultivated, the species of fish that were eaten, and even the livestock that were kept. In one remarkable case, analysis of sediment from a sunken ship's hold revealed the exact geographic origin of its cargo of olives based on the ancient pollen grains trapped there. This turns every handful of mud into a time capsule of an entire ecosystem, allowing us to reconstruct the ancient environment, the diet of the population, and their trading networks in astonishing detail, adding a rich biological layer to the architectural blueprint. All of these technological streams are converging into powerful, collaborative projects that are changing who gets to participate in archaeology. Initiatives like the Digital Atlas of Ancient Coastal Sites are creating open-access online platforms where anyone in the world can explore these digital reconstructions, examine the models, and even access the raw data. This democratization of discovery means a student in a classroom halfway across the globe can take a virtual dive through the streets of Pavloptery, or a retired engineer might spot a pattern in a sonar readout that a busy research team overlooked. It breaks down the barriers between the academic world and the public, transforming everyone into a potential steward of this submerged heritage. This collaborative spirit ensures that the story of these lost cities is not locked away in academic journals but is shared, explored, and protected by a global community, guaranteeing that these ancient blueprints continue to inspire wonder and curiosity for generations to come. Now, let's swim into the warm, shallow waters of the Bay of Naples, where the sunken city of Baye offers a breathtakingly different kind of blueprint, one not of commerce or daily toil, but of unparalleled luxury and Roman indulgence. This wasn't just a town, it was the premier resort destination for the empire's most powerful and wealthy citizens for over 4 centuries. Emperors like Nero, Julius Caesar, and Hadrian all built extravagant villas here, seeking the restorative powers of its natural thermal springs and the stunning seaside views. The very name Baye became synonymous with hedonism, a place where the elite came to escape the pressures of Rome and indulge in political scheming, lavish parties, and therapeutic relaxation. Its submergence, however, wasn't the result of a sudden cataclysm but a slow, inexorable sinking that has created one of the world's most unique archaeological parks, half on land and half beneath the sea. The phenomenon responsible is as fascinating as the city itself: volcanic bradysism. The entire Phlegrean Fields region is a supervolcano, a vast caldera of restless geothermal energy. Bradysism describes the gradual rising and falling of the ground caused by the movement of magma far below the surface. In Baye's case, the land has been slowly subsiding for 2,000 years, centimeter by centimeter, allowing the Mediterranean to gradually claim portions of the coastline. This incredibly slow process is what makes the site so special. Unlike a city shattered by an earthquake or instantly buried by ash, Baye was gently enveloped. The water acted as a preservative, cushioning magnificent structures and delicate artworks from the looters, weather, and urban development that destroyed so many other Roman sites. The result is an underwater museum of astonishing integrity, where the original blueprints of Roman leisure are still perfectly visible. Diving here is like gliding through a dream of ancient opulence. The underwater blueprint is a map of extravagance. You can swim through the remains of vast, sprawling villas, their rooms and corridors defined by low walls and crumbling brickwork. The floors are often still covered in intricate mosaics, their colorful tesserae depicting marine life, geometric patterns, and mythological scenes, now watched over by schools of fish instead of senators. Grand marble statues that once decorated lush gardens now stand silently on the sandy bottom, their forms softened by a gentle coat of algae and marine growth. Perhaps most impressive are the complex hydraulic systems. Archaeologists have mapped extensive networks of pipes and tunnels that fed the famous thermal baths, channeling naturally heated water and steam from the volcanic springs into both public bathhouses and private villa suites. This sophisticated engineering highlights a deep understanding of geothermal energy, creating an ancient spa resort of remarkable complexity and comfort. One of the most magnificent submerged structures is the so-called Temple of Venus, which was likely a vast, domed rotunda dedicated to the goddess of love and beauty, perhaps part of a larger bath complex. Its enormous concrete dome, a masterpiece of Roman engineering, now lies collapsed on the seabed, its colossal fragments hinting at the sheer scale of the original building. Nearby, the Pisonian Villa, named after a family who conspired against Nero, features its own private thermal complex, complete with a swimming pool and a series of heated rooms. The preservation is so complete that you can still see the hollow spaces under the floors, part of the hypocaust system that circulated hot air to warm the rooms, a luxurious amenity that shows how the elite of Baye integrated cutting-edge technology into their pursuit of pleasure. The city's design was a masterclass in blending architecture with nature. The villas were strategically placed to maximize the stunning sea views and the cooling breezes. They featured large windows, open-air courtyards, and colonnaded walkways that blurred the line between indoor and outdoor living. Excavations have also revealed a nymphaeum, an elaborate grotto or shrine dedicated to the nymphs, often decorated with fountains and statues. These structures were designed to incorporate natural elements like water and rock, creating tranquil, spiritual retreats within the bustling resort. This seamless integration of the built environment with the natural landscape reveals a Roman ideal of otium, leisure, peace, and cultivated relaxation that was literally built into the city's foundational plan. Baye's story is a powerful microcosm of a recurring historical theme, the precarious balance between human luxury and geological vulnerability. The very volcanic forces that made the location so desirable, the healing hot springs, the fertile soil, were also the forces that ultimately claimed it. The elite who built their palaces here were drawn by the area's natural gifts, seemingly unaware or unconcerned that the ground beneath them was alive and slowly moving. It's a dynamic we see echoed in modern resort towns built on precarious coastlines or in the shadow of volcanoes, where the allure of natural beauty and luxury often overshadows the underlying environmental risks. Baye stands as a stunning, beautiful warning from the past, a testament to both incredible human achievement and the immense, slow-moving power of the natural world that ultimately frames our existence. If you were to travel back to the morning of June 7, 1692, you would find Port Royal, Jamaica, at the very peak of its infamy. It was not a city of ancient mystique but a roaring, raucous, and ruthlessly modern boomtown, the wealthiest English colony in the Americas, and a place so notoriously sinful that preachers openly declared it the new Sodom. Its strategic location at the entrance to Kingston Harbor made it the perfect lair for pirates and privateers sanctioned by the British Crown to prey on Spanish treasure galleons. The city's streets were a chaotic symphony of clinking gold pieces, raucous sea shanties spilling from countless taverns, and the constant bustle of merchants moving unimaginable riches plundered from the high seas. Then at 17 minutes past 11 that morning, the earth convulsed. A massive earthquake, estimated to be a magnitude 7.5 or higher, struck with unimaginable force. The sand and gravel upon which the city was built underwent a terrifying process called liquefaction, instantly turning the solid ground into a churning, watery quicksand. In a matter of minutes, 2/3 of Port Royal simply sank beneath the waves, taking with it over 2,000 souls and freezing a singular, shocking moment of 17th century life in time. The blueprint of this sunken city, meticulously mapped by marine archaeologists, is a direct reflection of its chaotic and profit-driven soul. Unlike the orderly grids of ancient Roman cities or the ceremonial layouts of religious centers, Port Royal's plan is a tangled web of narrow streets and tightly packed buildings, a testament to its rapid, unplanned expansion. The maps reveal a city where opulent merchants' houses stood shoulder to shoulder with sprawling warehouses stuffed with spices, silks, and Spanish silver. Forts like Charles and James, meant to protect the city, now stand as silent, submerged sentinels on the seabed. But the most telling structures are the numerous taverns and brothels, with names like the sign of the Boar's Head, that appear on almost every corner of the underwater surveys. This dense, jumbled urban blueprint perfectly captures a society that prioritized quick wealth and instant gratification over long-term planning or stability, a city built on sand in both a literal and metaphorical sense. The rapidity of its descent created an archaeological site of unparalleled preservation, a Caribbean Pompeii, because the buildings were engulfed so quickly by the water and sealed in a protective layer of silt, organic materials that would have normally rotted away in a matter of decades have survived for centuries. Divers have recovered intact wooden pipes from the city's water system, leather shoes with their stitching still visible, and even the preserved remains of food, like a bowl of turtle soup still waiting to be eaten. Perhaps most poignant are the discoveries that speak to the sheer suddenness of the disaster. A pocket watch found on the seabed, its hands frozen at the precise time the earthquake struck, and the skeleton of a young girl found with her porcelain doll, a heartbreaking snapshot of a life interrupted in an instant. These finds move beyond architecture and provide an incredibly intimate, human-scale view of colonial life in the Caribbean. This underwater time capsule offers a brutally honest look at the harsh realities of the 17th century colonial world. Excavations have revealed the stark social divisions. The remains of lavish, brick-built homes with imported fine china stand in stark contrast to the simpler, wattle and daub structures of the common sailors and laborers. Artifacts tell a story of global trade and rampant consumerism. Chinese porcelain, Italian glassware, Spanish coins, and clay pipes from England all mingled together in the mud. But they also reveal the city's dark underpinnings. The discovery of iron leg shackles and the cramped, subterranean holding cells in some buildings are grim reminders that Port Royal's immense wealth was built not just on piracy, but on the brutal transatlantic slave trade, a crucial and sinister part of its economic engine. Port Royal's story is a powerful allegory for the fragility of human ambition in the face of nature's unpredictability. Its rise was meteoric, fueled by greed and opportunity, and its fall was just as swift, a stark warning that no amount of wealth or power can inoculate a society against geological forces. The city's enduring allure lies in this dramatic duality. It is both a historical treasure trove that provides an uncensored view of a pivotal era and a somber monument to the hubris of building a paradise for pirates on a foundation of sand. It reminds us that sometimes the most revealing blueprints are not those of planned perfection, but of chaotic, vibrant, and flawed humanity, suddenly silenced and preserved by the very sea that once made it rich. It's a profound and somewhat poetic twist of fate that the very forces of nature which consigned these magnificent cities to the deep are the same ones that have so perfectly preserved them for us to discover. The water and sediment that acted as a tomb also became an unparalleled protector, creating a set of environmental conditions that are uniquely hostile to the normal agents of decay. When a city sinks, it's often rapidly buried under layers of silt and sand. This blanket of sediment is the first and most crucial line of defense. It physically shields fragile structures from the destructive power of ocean currents, which would otherwise grind stone to sand and scatter artifacts across the seafloor. More importantly, it creates a sealed, oxygen-poor environment. This lack of oxygen, known as an anaerobic state, is a game-changer for preservation. The bacteria and fungi that normally feast on organic materials like wood, leather, textiles, and even food simply cannot thrive without oxygen. This is why, in places like the Baltic Sea, we can find ancient wooden shipwrecks with their carved figureheads still intact, looking as if they were launched yesterday, or why the sunken settlements off the coast of Israel have yielded woven baskets and stored grain that are thousands of years old. The chemistry of the water itself plays a starring role in this preservation drama. Salt water, particularly in colder climates, can dramatically slow down the decomposition process. The saline environment inhibits the activity of wood-boring organisms like the dreaded shipworm, which can reduce a mighty vessel to rubble in short order in more temperate waters. In some extraordinary cases, the minerals dissolved in the water can actually permineralize organic materials, essentially turning them to stone over centuries in a natural process similar to fossilization. But the true champion of underwater preservation is the Black Sea. Its unique geology has created what is essentially a giant underwater museum. Below a depth of about 150 meters, the water is completely devoid of oxygen or anoxic. This is because the Black Sea is a layered system. Fresh water from rivers flows in on top, while denser, saltier water from the Mediterranean remains trapped at the bottom, with very little mixing between the two. This anoxic layer is a time capsule of breathtaking quality. Here, archaeologists have discovered Bronze Age ships sitting upright on the seabed, their masts still standing and their rudders lashed in place, looking as though they are simply waiting for their crew to return. The preservation is so perfect that the coiled ropes on the decks and the intricate carvings on the rails remain exactly as they were the day the ship sank. However, this incredible state of preservation is heartbreakingly fragile. The same anaerobic environments that protect these sites are thrown into chaos the moment they are disturbed. When an artifact is brought to the surface and exposed to our oxygen-rich air, a process called rapid oxidation can begin, causing materials that have been stable for millennia to literally crumble to dust within hours, if not immediately conserved in a lab. This is why modern underwater archaeology emphasizes non-invasive survey and documentation. The goal is to study the blueprint without damaging the original. But a far greater threat now looms, one that is undoing nature's careful work. Human activity, coastal development, bottom trawling by fishing vessels, and dredging for harbors or land reclamation projects can physically rip apart these submerged sites in an instant, scattering irreplaceable blueprints forever. The unregulated salvage of artifacts for the black market is another destructive force, tearing objects from their context and erasing their story for a quick profit. Perhaps the most insidious and widespread threat, however, comes from climate change. The delicate chemical balance that preserves sites like those in the Black Sea can be altered by rising water temperatures and increased acidity from absorbed carbon dioxide. Warmer water holds less oxygen, which can encourage the growth of new, destructive types of bacteria that don't need oxygen to survive. Furthermore, the increased frequency and intensity of storms churn up the seabed, scouring away the protective layers of sediment and exposing these time capsules to the very forces of erosion they had been shielded from for centuries. This creates a desperate race against time for archaeologists. Understanding exactly how these natural preservation factors work is no longer just an academic exercise. It is a critical tool for triage. By identifying which sites are most vulnerable to these new threats, conservators can prioritize which blueprints to digitally document first and which physical sites most urgently need protective measures, like being covered with geotextile mats or designated as marine sanctuaries. The silent, underwater libraries of human history are under assault, and the environmental factors that have been their guardians for so long are now changing, making our role as their protectors more vital than ever before. While the historical and cultural value of these sunken cities is undeniable, they also represent a significant and often overlooked economic engine, transforming from mere archaeological curiosities into powerful assets that can fuel local economies and drive modern innovation. The most immediate and visible economic impact comes from tourism. When a site like the underwater ruins of Alexandria or the sunken villas of Baye are open to the public, they become a powerful magnet for a very specific kind of traveler, the heritage tourist. This isn't just about beach vacations, it's about experience and education. These tourists tend to stay longer, spend more on local guides, accommodations, and restaurants, and they often have a deep respect for the culture they are visiting. The creation of designated underwater archaeological parks with marked trails, informational plaques, and licensed dive operators generates a whole new local industry. It creates jobs not only for divers and boat captains, but also for conservationists, historians, and hospitality workers, weaving the preservation of the past directly into the economic fabric of the present. This model turns a sunken city from a cost center, something that requires funding to protect, into a revenue generator that can actually pay for its own continued conservation and study. But the economic potential extends far beyond ticket sales and dive tours. The meticulous study of these submerged blueprints can yield discoveries that have profound commercial applications in our modern world. A brilliant example is the ongoing fascination with Roman concrete. For decades, scientists have been baffled by the durability of ancient Roman marine structures, which have withstood the corrosive power of seawater for 2 millennia, while our modern concrete often crumbles in decades. By analyzing samples taken from sunken Roman ports like those in Baye, researchers have uncovered the secret, a unique recipe that involves volcanic ash and a specific chemical reaction that actually strengthens the material over time, making it more resilient to cracks. This reverse engineering of an ancient technology has sparked a race to develop new, more durable, and more sustainable forms of concrete for modern seawalls, offshore wind farms, and other critical infrastructure. The economic implications of such a discovery are staggering, potentially saving billions in maintenance and reconstruction costs, while also reducing the environmental footprint of construction. The past, in this sense, becomes a laboratory for future innovation, offering tested solutions to problems we are only now beginning to fully comprehend. Of course, this discussion inevitably leads to a more contentious area: the sheer monetary value of the artifacts and resources that lie on the seabed. These sites can be treasure troves in the most literal sense, containing everything from ancient coins and gold jewelry to rare metals and historically unique objects. The temptation to commercially salvage these items for profit is immense, and the history of underwater archaeology is unfortunately also a history of looters and treasure hunters who have ransacked sites, sold artifacts to the highest bidder, and in the process, irrevocably destroyed the historical context that gives those objects their true meaning. This creates a complex ethical and economic dilemma. While a single ancient coin might fetch a high price at auction, its value to researchers who can use it to date a layer of excavation or understand ancient trade routes is immeasurable. The economic model that prioritizes quick profit through sale is fundamentally at odds with the long-term, sustainable economic model built on research, tourism, and cultural preservation. This is why the modern approach focuses so heavily on finding a balance, on creating a virtuous cycle where economics and ethics support each other. The revenue generated from responsible, low-impact tourism is funneled directly back into preservation efforts, funding further research, and supporting the local community that acts as the site's steward. Grants and funding from governments and international bodies are often contingent on strict ethical guidelines that prioritize in situ preservation, keeping artifacts where they are found, and only recovering items when they are under immediate threat. The goal is to manage these sites not as mines to be extracted, but as renewable cultural resources. Their economic value isn't in the one-time sale of a gold statue, but in the perpetual draw of a well-preserved, authentically presented underwater museum that can be visited and studied by generation after generation. This perspective reframes the conversation, showing that the most worthwhile investment we can make is not in extracting value from the past, but in protecting it so that it may continue to enrich our present and inspire our future in countless sustainable ways. But this incredible window into the past opens up a complex web of ethical questions that archaeologists must navigate with care and respect. One of the most fundamental and contentious issues is that of ownership. When a sunken city is discovered, who does it truly belong to? Is it the property of the nation whose waters it lies in, even if the culture that built it has no direct connection to that modern state? This becomes even more complicated when sites are found in international waters, a legal gray area where the principle of finders keepers has historically led to destructive treasure hunting. For example, the Black Sea boasts shipwrecks from dozens of ancient civilizations, lying in depths beyond any single country's jurisdiction. Deciding who has the right to explore, recover, and interpret these finds requires delicate international diplomacy and agreements that prioritize preservation over profit. This challenge is further amplified when sites hold deep cultural or spiritual significance for indigenous communities. A coastline that was submerged thousands of years ago may have been home to the ancestors of present-day groups, and their oral histories might contain memories of these lost lands. For these communities, a sunken settlement isn't just an archaeological site, it is a sacred ancestral home. Therefore, a project that involves disturbing such a place without their consent is not just ethically questionable, it can be profoundly disrespectful and cause real cultural harm. Modern ethical practices now demand that archaeologists actively seek out and collaborate with these descendant communities from the very beginning of a project. This means sharing authority, listening to their concerns, and often incorporating their traditional knowledge into the research, transforming the work from an external extraction into a collaborative act of cultural rediscovery. Perhaps the greatest ethical threat to these underwater time capsules is the scourge of looting and commercial salvage. The lure of gold, jewels, and valuable artifacts has driven treasure hunters for centuries, and their methods are devastatingly destructive. Using massive dredges and prop wash deflectors, they essentially bulldoze through a site, tearing apart structures and scattering artifacts to grab the shiny objects. In doing so, they obliterate the context, the precise location of an object, what it was found next to, its layer in the sediment, which is the very information that allows archaeologists to understand its date, use, and significance. A beautiful amphora pulled from the mud and sold on the black market is just a vase. That same amphora, found in situ next to a specific type of spearhead and a coin hoard from a known reign, can tell the story of a specific battle, a trade route, or a moment of crisis. The loss of context is the loss of history itself, and it is irreversible. In response to these threats, the field has undergone a philosophical shift, moving from a focus on recovery to a priority of preservation in place. The gold standard is now non-invasive survey. The goal is to learn everything possible about a site using the sonar, magnetometers, and photogrammetry we discussed, while physically disturbing as little as possible. The mantra is to excavate digitally, not destructively. This approach acknowledges that we are merely temporary stewards of this heritage. The technology available to future generations will be far superior to our own. So if we can avoid it, we should not remove artifacts or dismantle structures. We should instead create a perfect digital record and leave the physical site untouched and protected for the archaeologists of the future, who will have tools and questions we cannot yet even imagine. Ultimately, these ethical guidelines are woven together by a single, powerful principle: that the knowledge gained from these sunken cities is a shared human inheritance, not a commodity to be owned or sold. It's about fostering a sense of global stewardship. This is why organizations like UNESCO have established conventions on underwater cultural heritage, providing a framework for nations to cooperate. It's why museums are increasingly working to repatriate artifacts that were unethically acquired to their countries of origin. And it's why public education and engagement are so crucial. When people feel a connection to these stories and see themselves as part of this shared human narrative, they become the most powerful advocates for its protection. The ethical exploration of these forgotten blueprints isn't about restricting discovery. It's about ensuring that every discovery enriches our collective understanding of the human journey, responsibly and respectfully. Looking ahead, the field of coastal archaeology stands at a fascinating crossroads, shaped equally by groundbreaking technological promise and the pressing threats of a changing planet. We're entering an era where researchers aren't just reacting to discoveries but are beginning to predict them. Using sophisticated climate data and sea level rise projections, archaeologists can now create predictive models that act like a high-tech treasure map, pinpointing coastlines and ancient river deltas that are most vulnerable to erosion or imminent submergence. This isn't about finding lost gold. It's a race against time to identify and document irreplaceable cultural heritage before it's erased forever. In places like the Mississippi Delta or low-lying islands in the Pacific, these models are already guiding preemptive excavations, allowing teams to carefully recover artifacts from sites that might be underwater within a few decades. This shift from discovery to proactive preservation is perhaps the most significant change in the field, turning archaeologists into frontline responders in the battle against climate change, tasked with salvaging the blueprints of past civilizations before they are lost to the same forces that claimed them centuries ago. This vital work is increasingly becoming a collective effort that extends far beyond academic institutions. Crowdsourcing and citizen science initiatives are powerfully democratizing the discovery process. Online platforms invite anyone with an internet connection to examine satellite imagery and sonar data, searching for the telltale geometric shapes of human-made structures hidden along coastlines or just beneath the waves. Enthusiastic amateurs have made genuine contributions, identifying potential sites that professional teams, often stretched thin for resources, might have overlooked. Furthermore, local diving communities and coastal residents are being trained as citizen scientists, learning to recognize and report artifacts without disturbing them, creating a vast, distributed network of guardians for our submerged heritage. This collaborative model not only accelerates research but also fosters a profound sense of shared ownership and responsibility, building a global community invested in protecting these fragile links to our common past. Yet for all this exciting progress, the path forward is fraught with significant challenges that have little to do with technology. Funding for archaeological research is perennially scarce and often one of the first budgets cut during economic downturns. The work is inherently slow, meticulous, and doesn't always yield the immediate, tangible results that attract private investment or consistent government backing. This funding crisis is felt most acutely in developing nations, which often possess some of the world's richest and most culturally significant underwater heritage, but lack the financial means or infrastructure to protect it. The waters of Southeast Asia, for instance, are littered with the wrecks of ancient trade ships floating time capsules of ceramic and culture that are systematically looted by organized salvagers because local authorities simply don't have the patrol boats or resources to stop them. Overcoming these obstacles requires not just money but sustained political will and international cooperation, a recognition that this heritage is a global, not just a national, treasure that deserves protection. The solutions to these challenges may lie in the very technologies that are revolutionizing exploration. Virtual and augmented reality are poised to transform public engagement, offering a breathtaking solution to the dilemma of preserving sites by leaving them untouched while still making them accessible. Imagine strapping on a headset and instantly being transported to the seafloor, able to swim through the streets of Thonus Heracleion, examine a pristine amphora up close, or watch a digital reconstruction of how the Grand Temple of Baye once looked, all without ever getting wet or risking damage to the actual ruins. These immersive experiences can be shared in classrooms and museums worldwide, breaking down physical and economic barriers to access. This isn't just about spectacle, it's a powerful tool for education and advocacy. By allowing millions to personally experience the awe and significance of these sites, we build a broader base of support for the difficult and expensive work of preserving the physical remains, ensuring that the future of coastal archaeology is not just a scientific pursuit but a widely shared human endeavor. What if the solutions to our most pressing modern challenges, rising seas, urban flooding, unsustainable construction, are not waiting to be invented, but have been resting on the ocean floor for centuries, waiting for us to rediscover them? The engineering blueprints recovered from these submerged cities are far more than historical curiosities. They are masterclasses in design that speak directly to our contemporary crises. Ancient builders possessed a profound understanding of their local environment that we, with all our technology, are only now beginning to relearn. They didn't fight against nature, they worked with it, and in doing so, created structures of breathtaking resilience. Consider the Roman harbors like those at Caesarea Maritima. Rather than constructing rigid, straight walls that would be pummeled by the full force of Mediterranean storms, Roman engineers designed curved and multi-angled breakwaters. These innovative shapes were calculated to dissipate wave energy, letting the water's own power cancel itself out. This wasn't a guess, it was applied hydrodynamics, and it's a principle that modern marine engineers still study and emulate today to protect our own vulnerable coastlines from increasingly violent storms. This philosophy of harmony extended far beyond the shoreline and into the very heart of these ancient cities, particularly in their approach to that most precious resource, fresh water. In an era long before electric pumps and centralized treatment plants, these societies had to be geniuses of hydrology. The ancient city of Dwaker, for instance, showcased an incredible system of water conservation and management. Archaeologists have found evidence of intricate networks of stone channels and, most impressively, stepped wells. These weren't just simple holes in the ground. They were magnificent multi-story structures that served as communal gathering places, spiritual centers, and sophisticated water harvesting tools. Their stepped design allowed access to the water table as it fluctuated with the seasons, while also reducing evaporation and preventing contamination. The system was gravity-fed, required no external power, and was built from local stone. It represents a closed-loop, sustainable water system that many of our modern, energy-intensive desalination and pumping projects could learn from. Perhaps the most humbling lesson lies in their choice of materials. We build with concrete, a material whose production is a major contributor to global carbon emissions and which often crumbles after a few decades in salt water. The Romans, however, developed a concrete recipe that has done the opposite. It has gotten stronger over 2,000 years of immersion. The secret, discovered by studying samples from submerged ports like Baye, involves mixing lime and volcanic ash. When seawater percolates through this mixture, it triggers a chemical reaction that actually forms new, ultra-durable minerals that seal cracks and strengthen the structure over time. Modern scientists are now feverishly working to reverse engineer this ancient technology to create a new generation of self-healing, sustainable concretes. It's a stunning realization that an answer to a multi-billion-dollar modern infrastructure problem was sitting at the bottom of the sea, in plain sight all along. The overarching principle we can extract from these sunken blueprints is a radical kind of contextual design. These builders didn't impose a one-size-fits-all solution onto any landscape. They deeply understood the specific geology, hydrology, and climate of their location. They used locally sourced materials, which not only reduced the environmental cost of transportation, but also ensured those materials were already naturally suited to the conditions. They oriented streets to capture cooling breezes and positioned buildings to maximize natural light, creating comfortable living environments without any need for fossil fuels. This stands in stark contrast to much of modern development, which often involves clearing a site entirely and then building something that is fundamentally separate from, and often antagonistic to, its surroundings. The ancient approach was about integration, creating a symbiotic relationship between the city and its ecosystem. Ultimately, these lessons from the deep are not about nostalgia or a desire to return to some mythical past. They are about smart, proven strategy. As we face the escalating consequences of climate change, the wisdom encoded in these submerged cities provides a vital playbook for adaptive and resilient design. They show us that longevity isn't about building bigger walls against the sea, but about designing flexible systems that can accommodate change. They teach us that true sustainability is achieved not through complex, high-tech fixes alone, but through a deep respect for natural processes and a willingness to learn from the past. By looking down into the water, we might just find the inspiration to build a future that is not only more durable, but also more in tune with the world we inhabit. This complex dance between discovery and destruction is reshaping the very nature of underwater archaeology, turning it into an urgent rescue operation. As our planet warms, polar ice melts and seawater expands, causing ocean levels to creep steadily higher. This process doesn't just mean shorelines are moving inland. It fundamentally alters the marine environment that has protected these sites for centuries. Warmer water temperatures accelerate chemical reactions, causing stonework to erode faster and encouraging the growth of destructive microorganisms that feast on organic materials like wood and textiles. Meanwhile, the ocean's increasing acidity, a direct result of absorbing excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, acts like a slow-acting solvent on limestone, marble, and ancient concretes, gradually eating away at the very fabric of these submerged cities. The protective layers of silt that have safeguarded these time capsules are now being scoured away by more frequent and powerful storms, which are another consequence of our changing climate, leaving delicate structures exposed to the full force of the elements. Paradoxically, this same environmental shift can sometimes work in an archaeologist's favor, if only temporarily. In regions experiencing severe droughts, reservoirs and lakes are shrinking to historic lows, revealing glimpses of the past that are normally hidden beneath the surface. Recently, plummeting water levels in rivers and reservoirs across Europe unearthed what many are calling hunger stones, markers from past centuries that were used to warn future generations of impending famine during times of drought. More significantly, the receding waters of Iraq's Mosul Dam revealed the remains of a sprawling 3,400-year-old Bronze Age city, complete with a palace and an extensive network of buildings. While these drought-driven revelations offer a precious, unplanned opportunity for documentation, they come with their own set of dangers. Artifacts and structures that have been stabilized in a watery environment can rapidly deteriorate when exposed to air, suffering from cracking, warping, and rapid oxidation. This creates a frantic scramble for archaeologists, who must race to map and record these sites before the waters inevitably return or the materials are irreparably damaged. The overarching reality, however, is that the relentless march of sea level rise presents a far greater threat than opportunity. For every site briefly revealed by drought, countless others are facing accelerated erosion and eventual obliteration. Coastal sites that were once safely buried under meters of sand are now being uncovered only to be immediately battered by wave action. The sediment that has preserved organic materials like wood, leather, and food for millennia is being redistributed, leaving these fragile remains to rot away. This creates a heartbreaking dilemma for researchers. The same process that is making these sites more accessible by reducing their water cover is also actively destroying them. It's a cruel twist of fate that just as technology has given us the tools to see and document these cities in unprecedented detail, the window of opportunity to do so is closing faster than ever before. This has fundamentally shifted the mission from one of pure exploration to one of urgent digital preservation, a race to create high-fidelity records of our shared heritage before it vanishes forever. This urgent reality is driving the rapid adoption of cutting-edge technologies that prioritize speed and non-invasive documentation. The focus is no longer on the slow, meticulous process of excavating and recovering artifacts, but on capturing everything digitally before it's too late. Teams are now deploying autonomous underwater vehicles equipped with high-resolution sonar and LIDAR to map large areas with incredible speed. Photogrammetry is being used to create photorealistic three-dimensional models of entire sites, allowing every detail to be studied virtually long after the original may have succumbed to erosion. These digital twins are more than just backups. They are immersive records that can be analyzed, shared, and experienced by researchers and the public alike, ensuring that the knowledge contained within these blueprints is not lost even if the physical structures are. This approach represents a new philosophy in archaeology, one that accepts that we cannot always save the past from the present, but we can preserve it in a new, digital form for the future. This pressing situation creates a powerful and sobering link between the struggles of ancient civilizations and our own. The cities we see submerged today were often victims of past climate shifts, rising seas following the last ice age, local geological changes, or catastrophic events like tsunamis. Their ruins are a physical testament to the vulnerability of human settlements in the face of environmental change. Now, as our own coastal communities grapple with the very same threat of rising oceans, these ancient sites take on a new role. They are no longer just historical curiosities. They are stark reminders of the long-term consequences of a changing climate. The urgency to document them is not just about understanding the past, it is about learning from it. By studying how these ancient societies adapted, fortified, or ultimately abandoned their homes, we can gather invaluable insights into resilience and sustainability that are directly applicable to the challenges we face today, making the preservation of these underwater blueprints an unexpectedly crucial part of planning for our own future. The quest to map these sunken metropolises is by its very nature a profoundly international endeavor. An ancient trading port by design connected cultures and continents, so it is only fitting that uncovering its secrets requires that same spirit of global connection. A single nation, no matter how well-funded or equipped, simply cannot tackle the immense logistical, financial, and intellectual challenges of underwater archaeology alone. The sites themselves often lie in contentious or shared waters, and the expertise needed, from specialists in Roman concrete to engineers who can operate a deep-sea ROV, is a scattered treasure across the globe. This reality has transformed the field from a collection of solitary national projects into a vibrant, collaborative network, where the shared goal of preserving our common human heritage has become a powerful force for international cooperation and even diplomacy. At the heart of this collaborative spirit is the 2001 UNESCO Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage. This isn't just a vague statement of principles. It's a crucial legal framework that provides the rules of the road for exploring and, more importantly, protecting these fragile sites. Before this convention, the law of the sea was often a free-for-all, where so-called finders-keepers policies led to the commercial salvage and destruction of irreplaceable wrecks and ruins for their valuable cargo. The UNESCO Convention changed the game by establishing that underwater cultural heritage is not a commodity to be looted, but a legacy to be safeguarded for all humanity. It sets strict scientific standards for any excavation, emphasizing in situ preservation, leaving things where they are found, as the first and best option. Most significantly, it fosters a spirit of shared responsibility, encouraging nations to work together, share information, and assist each other in protecting sites, even those outside their own territorial waters. This document is the bedrock upon which modern, ethical underwater archaeology is built. This framework comes to life in spectacular joint expeditions that read like a United Nations task force for history. A perfect example is the ongoing work in the Mediterranean, a sea that has been a crossroads of civilization for millennia and is now a graveyard of countless sunken cities and ships. Here, you might find a research vessel flying the Greek flag, working alongside a team from Italy, using a state-of-the-art autonomous underwater vehicle on loan from a German research institute, all while being advised by an Egyptian archaeologist specializing in Ptolemaic pottery. Each party brings its unique strength to the table. One country might have jurisdiction over the site, another provides cutting-edge technology, and a third offers specific academic knowledge. By pooling their resources, these international teams can achieve far more than any single entity could alone, turning a daunting challenge into a manageable and immensely productive collaboration. The benefits of this approach extend far beyond the scientific papers that get published. There is a powerful, often overlooked dimension of cultural diplomacy at work here. When scientists from countries with a history of political tension or conflict come together on a research vessel, united by a shared passion for discovery, something remarkable happens. They are no longer representatives of opposing governments. They are colleagues and collaborators working toward a common goal that transcends modern borders. They share meals, debate interpretations of a puzzling sonar image, and celebrate each other's discoveries. This person-to-person interaction builds bridges of mutual respect and understanding that can be far more enduring than any official state agreement. The shared awe of uncovering a 2,000-year-old statue together creates a bond that reminds everyone involved of our shared humanity and our collective past. Ultimately, this global partnership is the only way to ensure that these priceless blueprints are not lost to the twin threats of time and human greed. Looters and treasure hunters operate with ruthless efficiency, and they do not respect national boundaries. The only effective defense is a network of cooperation that is just as wide-reaching. By sharing data, monitoring sites collaboratively, and alerting each other to suspicious activity, the international community can act as guardians for these vulnerable time capsules. This turns the search for forgotten cities into one of the most unifying human endeavors. We have a global project that reminds us that history has no borders, that curiosity is a universal language, and that the stories hidden beneath the waves belong to all of us, waiting to be discovered together. But uncovering these secrets isn't a task reserved for academics in isolated laboratories. It's a story that belongs to all of us, and sharing that story has become a mission as important as the discoveries themselves. The most powerful tool in this effort is the ability to bring these lost worlds directly to the public, transforming complex data into experiences of genuine awe. Breathtaking documentaries, equipped with cutting-edge CGI and footage from underwater drones, act as virtual time machines, allowing millions to glide through the sunken streets of Thonus Heracleion or circle the mysterious Yonaguni monument from their living rooms. These aren't just films, they're visceral journeys that make the distant past feel immediate and tangible. This visual storytelling is complemented by immersive museum exhibits, where 3D printed replicas of artifacts recovered from the seafloor, a sailor's wooden comb, a perfectly preserved mosaic, can be seen and almost touched, bridging a gap of centuries and making the people of these cities feel startlingly real. Virtual reality takes this a step further, offering fully interactive tours where you can don a headset and literally stand on the deck of a Bronze Age shipwreck, looking up at the surface of the water shimmering meters above. These technologies don't just inform, they inspire a deep, emotional connection that facts and figures alone could never achieve. This engagement continues beyond the screen and into the classroom, where the mysteries of the deep are finding a new home in educational curricula. Imagine a history lesson that moves beyond textbooks to analyze the actual sonar map of Pavloptery, challenging students to interpret its grid-like street plan and debate what each building's function might have been. Or a science class that uses the chemical composition of Roman concrete, recovered from submerged harbors, to explore real-world applications of material science and sustainable engineering. By integrating these discoveries into lesson plans, we're showing young people that history is not a static list of dates but a dynamic, ongoing detective story. and that the skills they learn in math, physics, and geography have direct, exciting applications in unraveling the past. This approach cultivates not just knowledge, but a sense of curiosity and critical thinking, potentially sparking a passion that leads to the next generation of marine archaeologists, conservators, and engineers. The digital age has democratized this discovery process in ways that were unimaginable just a decade ago, turning global citizens into active participants in archaeology. Through innovative crowdsourcing platforms, anyone with a smartphone can now contribute to real research. You might spend a coffee break scrolling through satellite imagery of the Mediterranean coast, tagging potential underwater anomalies that could be the next great find, or help archaeologists classify pottery fragments from a recently excavated shipwreck by using a simple online app. Museums and research institutions run social media campaigns that offer a behind-the-scenes look at ongoing excavations, allowing the public to follow a discovery as it unfolds, from the first sonar ping to the careful conservation of a recovered artifact. This transparent, inclusive approach breaks down the ivory tower of academia, fostering a powerful sense of shared ownership and collective effort. It's no longer just their discovery, it's ours. This widespread public engagement creates a virtuous cycle that directly fuels the science it celebrates. The wonder sparked by a documentary or a museum exhibit translates into tangible support, whether through tourism to established underwater archaeological parks, donations to research foundations, or public pressure on governments to fund preservation efforts. When people feel a personal connection to these sites, they become advocates for their protection, understanding that these are not just old stones but irreplaceable chapters of our shared human story. This collective sense of stewardship is our greatest defense against the threats of looting, coastal development, and climate change. By making the blueprints of ancient coastal cities a vibrant and active part of our modern cultural conversation, we ensure they are valued, protected, and continuously explored, guaranteeing that these silent cities beneath the waves will continue to speak to us and to generations far into the future. This incredible work of uncovering lost history is no longer confined to universities and research institutions with massive budgets. A quiet revolution is underway, one that throws open the doors of discovery to anyone with a curious mind and an internet connection. Citizen science has transformed from a niche hobby into a powerhouse of modern archaeology, harnessing the collective effort of thousands of passionate volunteers to tackle tasks that would take a small team of professionals decades to complete. Online platforms have become the new frontier for this collaborative exploration. Imagine logging onto a website like Zooniverse and being presented with a never-before-seen sonar scan of the Mediterranean seafloor. With a brief tutorial, you learn to identify the telltale straight lines and right angles that hint at human-made structures hidden under the sand. Every click, every tag you place, contributes to a massive crowdsourced map, helping professional archaeologists pinpoint exactly where to send their expensive underwater drones for a closer look. This isn't just busy work, it's a fundamental shift, turning the global public into active partners in the research process, dramatically accelerating the pace of discovery and allowing experts to focus their limited time on the most promising targets. The contribution of these dedicated amateurs isn't limited to the digital realm. The world's coastlines are patrolled by an army of recreational divers, snorkelers, and even beachcombers whose sharp eyes have repeatedly proven invaluable. It's often these local enthusiasts, intimately familiar with their usual dive spots, who notice when something new appears after a storm or spot an anomaly that doesn't belong. A classic example unfolded off the coast of Israel, where a recreational diver noticed an unusual collection of stone shapes on the seabed. Recognizing they might be significant, he reported the find to authorities. That single report led to the discovery of an ancient harbor filled with stone anchors and artifacts, a site that might have remained hidden for years without that keen amateur observation. These citizen discoverers act as a vital early warning system and a force multiplier for archaeological surveys, their countless hours in the water providing a layer of surveillance that no research grant could ever afford to fund. Understanding that local communities are the most consistent guardians of their own heritage, organizations worldwide have begun establishing formal training programs for these citizen scientists. These initiatives go far beyond simply asking people to report finds. They offer hands-on workshops in underwater survey techniques, photography, and even the basics of conservation. Locals living near significant sites are taught how to properly document a potential discovery without disturbing it, using simple tools like measuring tapes and cameras to create a preliminary record. This empowers communities, giving them a real stake in the preservation of the history that lies off their shores. It transforms them from passive observers into active stewards, fostering a profound sense of ownership and pride that is the most effective long-term defense against looting and neglect. When a community feels that a sunken city is part of their identity, they become its most passionate and vigilant protectors. This democratization of archaeology is reshaping the entire field, making it more inclusive, diverse, and globally connected than ever before. It taps into a vast and underutilized reservoir of human passion and intellect, bringing in perspectives from teachers, engineers, artists, and students who might approach a problem from a completely different angle than a trained academic. A graphic designer might see a pattern in artifact distribution that others missed. A software engineer might develop a simple script to help classify pottery fragments more efficiently. This collaborative model breaks down the traditional barriers of the ivory tower, creating a vibrant, global community united by a shared curiosity about our past. It proves that you don't need a doctorate to make a meaningful contribution to history. The search for these forgotten blueprints is no longer a solitary quest by a few experts but a truly shared human adventure, a collective effort to piece together the story of who we are and where we come from, one discovery at a time. Even with all our cutting-edge technology and decades of dedicated exploration, the ocean floor still holds onto its secrets with a stubborn grip, leaving us with profound and tantalizing mysteries that continue to fuel both rigorous scientific debate and captivating public imagination. Perhaps no site embodies this enigma more than the Yonaguni monument off the coast of Japan. This massive sandstone formation, discovered in the mid-1980s, features breathtakingly sharp geometric terraces, what appear to be perfectly straight steps, and right-angled corners that scream of human design. The debate over its origin is a perfect microcosm of the challenges we face. One camp of geologists argues persuasively that these are purely natural features, the result of intense seismic activity fracturing the rock along natural plains and powerful currents, sculpting and eroding it into these deceivingly regular shapes over millennia. They point to similar sandstone formations on land that were created by entirely natural processes. Yet, other researchers counter with compelling details: the sheer precision of the angles, the presence of what looks like a carved relief resembling an animal, and the alignment of the structure with other known archaeological sites in the region. This isn't just an academic quarrel, it strikes at the very heart of how we interpret our past. If even a portion of Yonaguni is man-made, it would force a dramatic rewrite of human history in the Pacific, suggesting the existence of a sophisticated, seafaring culture with advanced stonemasonry skills at a time when mainstream history tells us such things were impossible. This unresolved puzzle serves as a powerful reminder that for every answer we uncover, the deep presents us with a dozen new questions, each one more compelling than the last. The questions extend far beyond the origins of single structures to the very fate of entire civilizations. Take the case of the Neolithic settlements scattered across the world's continental shelves, like the one at Atlet off the coast of Israel. We know it was a thriving village with stone houses, a ritual site, and a sophisticated well system. We also know it now lies under the Mediterranean Sea. But the exact sequence of events that led to its abandonment remains shrouded in uncertainty. Was it a slow, agonizing retreat over generations as rising seas gradually contaminated their freshwater supply, as the evidence of their fortified well might suggest? Or was it a single, catastrophic event, a colossal tsunami triggered by a submarine landslide or a volcanic eruption, that suddenly rendered the location uninhabitable? The sediment layers hold clues, but they are often ambiguous, open to multiple interpretations. Pinpointing the precise cause is not just about satisfying historical curiosity. It is crucial for understanding the resilience and vulnerability of early societies in the face of environmental change. These are not abstract academic questions. They are narratives of human catastrophe and adaptation, and solving them helps us piece together the real stories of the people who lived there, understanding not just how they died, but how they fought to survive against overwhelming natural forces. Adding to the frustration is the simple, vast unknown. For every sunken city we have meticulously mapped, like Thonus Heracleion, there are undoubtedly dozens, if not hundreds, still waiting to be found, their blueprints completely hidden under layers of sediment or lying in depths we have yet to systematically survey. The Mediterranean alone, a crossroads of ancient trade for millennia, is believed to hold countless undiscovered shipwrecks and settlements, each one a potential time capsule holding artifacts and information that could radically alter our understanding of ancient economies, migration patterns, and cultural exchanges. A single shipwreck, perfectly preserved in the anoxic depths of the Black Sea, could contain a cargo that rewrites the history of a specific trade route. An undiscovered port city on the Indian coast could reveal new chapters about the maritime connections between the Roman Empire and ancient India. This vast potential for discovery is what keeps archaeologists and historians utterly obsessed. They are working from an incomplete map of human history, knowing that the next sonar ping or the next report from a curious diver could be the one that leads to a breakthrough, filling in a blank space on our timeline and connecting cultural dots in ways we never anticipated. These enduring mysteries are far from being discouraging roadblocks. They are the very engine that drives the field forward, attracting new generations of explorers armed with ever more sophisticated tools. The unresolved nature of a site like Yonaguni inspires engineers to develop more precise scanning equipment that can distinguish tool marks from natural erosion patterns. The question of how Neolithic villages were submerged fuels more advanced climate modeling, cross-referencing geological data with archaeological findings to create more accurate timelines of past sea level rise. This cycle of mystery and investigation is a beautiful, self-sustaining loop. Each unanswered question pushes technology to new limits, and each technological advance helps us ask better, more specific questions of the past. It transforms underwater archaeology from a simple process of cataloging finds into a dynamic, living detective story, one where the clues are hidden under layers of water and time, and the stakes are nothing less than understanding the full scope of the human journey. This relentless pursuit of answers, this refusal to let the past stay silent, is what ensures that the silent, submerged blueprints of our ancestors will continue to captivate and inspire us for centuries to come. Yet to truly grasp the story of these sunken cities, we cannot look at the underwater blueprint in isolation. The sea only tells part of the tale. To get the full picture, archaeologists must become connectors, weaving together the clues from beneath the waves with the evidence still on dry land. This fusion of marine and terrestrial archaeology creates a powerful, holistic view of the past, revealing not just how a city was built, but how it lived, breathed, and evolved within its larger world. Think of it like trying to understand a grand novel by only reading every other chapter. You might get the gist, but you'll miss the crucial narrative threads, the character development, and the profound themes that give the story its true meaning. By integrating these two realms, we move from examining a single, frozen moment of disaster to reading the entire, dynamic biography of a civilization and its relationship with a changing coast. This collaborative approach often begins right at the water's edge, where the findings from land and sea directly complement and explain one another. A perfect example can be found with the search for ancient harbors. An underwater survey might reveal the remains of a massive breakwater or a series of stone piers submerged in a bay. This tells us there was a port, but it doesn't tell us what that port was connected to. That's where terrestrial archaeologists take over. Excavating on the nearby shoreline, they might uncover the warehouses, administrative buildings, and customs houses that supported that harbor's operations. They might find inscriptions detailing trade taxes or the goods that passed through. Suddenly, the submerged stone blocks transform into a bustling economic gateway. We move from knowing the harbor existed to understanding its purpose, its volume of trade, and its importance to the regional economy. The underwater structure provides the skeletal framework, while the land excavations flesh out the muscles and nerves of the operation. This interplay becomes even more fascinating when we trace the movement of people over time in response to environmental change. In many regions, we see a clear pattern of coastal migration. A terrestrial site might show evidence of a settlement that was gradually abandoned over centuries. The pottery styles might become less frequent in the upper layers, and the buildings show signs of disrepair. For a long time, this might have been a mystery, but when underwater surveys reveal a contemporaneous sunken city just offshore, the story clicks into place. We can now interpret the land site not as a victim of war or social collapse, but as a community in a managed, strategic retreat from a rising sea. The evidence on land shows us the process of leaving, while the underwater city shows us what they left behind. This allows us to study human adaptation not as an abstract concept, but as a tangible, traceable journey across a landscape, giving us a powerful long-term perspective on how societies have historically responded to the very coastal threats we face today. The true power of this integration is its ability to reconstruct entire ancient landscapes, or what archaeologists call a regional network. A spectacular case study is unfolding in Greece, where researchers are combining data from numerous terrestrial sites with the detailed maps of submerged cities like Pavloptery. By doing this, they are not just studying individual towns, they are piecing together the economic and social connections between them. The style of pottery found in the sunken city might be traced back to a specific clay source and workshop identified at an inland site. A particular stone used in the underwater foundations might be quarried from a hillside many miles away. This allows researchers to map out ancient trade routes with incredible precision, understanding how resources, goods, and people flowed between the coast and the hinterland. The sunken city stops being an isolated island of history and becomes a vital node in a vibrant, interconnected network, a hub in a complex system of exchange and communication. This interdisciplinary dialogue is revolutionizing our interpretation of daily life. An artifact recovered from the seabed gains profound new meaning when viewed alongside findings from its terrestrial counterpart. Imagine a unique type of fishing weight found in the ruins of a sunken house. On its own, it tells us they fished. But if the same style of weight is found in homes at a terrestrial site further inland, it suggests a shared technology, a cultural tradition common to all the communities along that coast. Alternatively, if the terrestrial sites show evidence of large-scale salt production, the submerged fishing industry suddenly makes more sense. They were likely catching and preserving fish on an industrial scale for trade. The land evidence provides the context for the sea's artifacts, turning isolated objects into pieces of a larger cultural and economic puzzle. It helps us move beyond the architecture of a city to understand the rhythms of its people, their trades, their diets, their shared customs, and their economic specialties. Ultimately, bridging the gap between land and sea archaeology allows us to see the ancient world in its full, dynamic dimension. It reveals the constant, fluid interplay between human societies and their environments. We see how a prosperous coastal city could stimulate growth and specialization in inland farming communities to feed its population. We see how a technological innovation developed in a maritime hub, like a new ship design, could rapidly spread along trade routes to distant terrestrial powers. This holistic view does more than just fill in blanks on a map. It teaches us that ancient civilizations were not static entities confined to the land. They were dynamic, adaptive systems that extended from the mountaintops down to the seafloor, constantly negotiating their place in a changing world. By listening to both the whispers from the earth and the echoes from the deep, we can finally hear the whole story. It's almost poetic that the very cities we've worked so hard to rediscover are now offering us a lifeline, providing a treasure trove of proven strategies for the existential challenges our own coastal communities face today. Modern urban planners and engineers, grappling with the immense problems of sea level rise, intense storm surges, and overcrowded populations, are increasingly turning their gaze not just toward the future, but deep into the past. They are finding that the blueprints of these submerged metropolises are not relics to be merely studied, but active, living textbooks filled with ingenious solutions that have been tested by the most rigorous of all forces, time itself. This isn't about nostalgia or historical reenactment. It's about pragmatic, intelligent adaptation, learning from millennia of human experimentation to build a more resilient tomorrow. One of the most powerful lessons lies in the ancient art of working with nature rather than stubbornly against it. We see this in the way these forgotten engineers masterfully integrated natural features into their urban designs. Consider the ancient city of Dwaker, with its sophisticated system of channels and gates that manage the tidal flow, or the way the builders of Pavloptery used a natural sandbar to create a calm, protected harbor. This principle of adaptive reuse stands in stark contrast to the 20th century approach, which often involved bulldozing natural landscapes to impose a rigid, artificial grid. Today, this ancient wisdom is inspiring a revolution in green infrastructure. In a city like Bangkok, which is sinking rapidly due to groundwater extraction and threatened by rising seas, planners are looking to restore the intricate network of canals, or khlongs, that once served as the city's natural circulatory system for drainage and transportation. Similarly, Venice's ongoing struggle with aquaculture is leading to a re-evaluation of its historic relationship with water, moving beyond just the controversial Moat barrier system to explore more nuanced ways of living with occasional flooding, much as the city's original builders did. The goal is no longer to completely define nature, but to design urban environments that can flex and adapt, absorbing the impact of environmental stresses rather than shattering under them. The very materials these ancient builders used are also sparking a modern scientific revolution, particularly in the quest for more durable construction. For decades, material scientists were baffled by the endurance of Roman marine concrete. Structures like the breakwaters at Caesarea Maritima or the submerged piers of Baye have withstood 2,000 years of constant saltwater corrosion and pummeling waves, while our modern concrete often shows significant deterioration within decades. The secret, unlocked by studying samples from these ancient sites, was a unique chemical recipe involving volcanic ash and lime. When seawater percolates through this mixture, it triggers a rare chemical reaction that forms rare crystalline minerals that actually fill in cracks and strengthen the material over time. This discovery of self-healing concrete is a game-changer. Laboratories around the world are now racing to reverse engineer this ancient technology, developing new composite materials for modern seawalls, bridge pilings, and offshore energy infrastructure. The economic and environmental implications are enormous, promising structures that require less maintenance, last for centuries, and have a significantly lower carbon footprint than their modern counterparts. It's a stunning realization that one of the most promising answers to a multi-billion-dollar modern problem was sitting on the seafloor all along, patiently waiting for us to look back in order to move forward. Beyond materials and hydrology, the very layout and philosophy of these ancient cities offer a masterclass in creating socially vibrant and efficient urban spaces. The grid-like street plan of Pavloptery, dating back over 5,000 years, wasn't just about order. It was about creating clear pathways for movement, facilitating trade, and ensuring that homes and public spaces were well ventilated and connected. This emphasis on human-scale design and community interaction is a powerful antidote to the car-centric urban sprawl that has defined so much of modern development. Contemporary planners are now drawing inspiration from these principles to design neighborhoods that prioritize walkability, mixed-use zoning, and public squares that encourage social gathering. The ancient idea of the city as a cohesive, interconnected organism where daily life, commerce, and spirituality were woven together in a tight physical fabric is directly influencing the modern smart city movement. But instead of just using technology for technology's sake, the deepest lessons from the past teach us that a truly smart city is one that is socially coherent, environmentally attuned, and designed for human well-being first and foremost. Ultimately, this look backward is providing the most forward-thinking framework for urban resilience. The fate of cities like Atlet is a sobering reminder that retreat is sometimes the most sustainable option. This is informing the difficult but necessary modern conversation around managed retreat, where communities in the most vulnerable locations are strategically relocated to higher ground, a concept now being seriously considered in places from Louisiana to Alaska. The ancient world shows us a full spectrum of responses to environmental threat, from fortification to adaptation to migration. By studying this entire range of outcomes, we can make more informed, nuanced decisions today. We learn that resilience isn't just about building taller walls. It's about fostering flexible, adaptable communities with multiple options for response. The silent, submerged ruins off our coasts are no longer just monuments to past failures. They have become active guides, offering a profound and time-tested wisdom. They challenge us to design our future not as a conquest over nature, but as a graceful, enduring, and deeply intelligent dance with it. And yet, for all their resilience against time, these submerged cities now face a new set of threats that are far more immediate and destructive than the slow creep of the sea that claimed them centuries ago. The very environment that has acted as their perfect preservative for millennia is now turning against them, jeopardizing these priceless blueprints of human history. The most pervasive danger comes from the escalating impacts of climate change. more frequent and powerful storms churn up the seabed with terrifying force, scouring away the protective layers of silt that have safeguarded delicate structures and organic materials. These violent weather events can topple standing walls, scatter artifacts across the seafloor, and in a single afternoon, erase the context that archaeologists have spent decades meticulously documenting. Furthermore, the ocean's increasing acidity, a direct result of absorbing excess carbon dioxide from our atmosphere, acts like a slow-acting acid bath on limestone, marble, and ancient mortar, gradually dissolving the very fabric of these cities. Warmer water temperatures also accelerate the growth of destructive microorganisms and encourage wood-boring organisms like shipworms to move into new territories, attacking wooden shipwrecks and structures that were once safe in colder waters. Human activity presents an equally formidable and often more deliberate challenge. Coastal development is a constant pressure, with the construction of ports, harbors, and land reclamation projects often proceeding with little regard for the archaeological treasures that may lie just beneath the dredging equipment. The deep scars of boat anchors and the devastating practice of bottom trawling, where heavy fishing nets are dragged across the seafloor, can rip apart fragile ruins in an instant, scattering irreplaceable artifacts and obliterating ancient floor plan. Perhaps the most cynical threat comes from looters and treasure hunters, who see these sites not as cultural heritage but as underwater gold mines. Using destructive methods like prop wash deflectors, which act like underwater bulldozers, they blast away sediment to grab shiny objects, utterly destroying the stratigraphic context that is essential for understanding a site's chronology and function. The loss is permanent. A gold coin sold on the black market is just a commodity, but that same coin found in situ next to a specific type of pottery can tell a profound story about trade, date a building's construction, or reveal the wealth of a forgotten merchant. Confronted with this onslaught, conservators and archaeologists are pioneering a suite of innovative solutions that blend cutting-edge technology with clever, nature-based strategies. One of the most effective approaches is the establishment of Marine Protected Areas (MPA), specifically designed around cultural heritage sites. These underwater parks, like the one encompassing the sunken city of Baye in Italy, create a legal framework that restricts damaging activities like anchoring, fishing, and diving without a guide. Within these zones, a fascinating solution is sometimes employed: the creation of artificial reefs. By strategically sinking clean, environmentally friendly structures nearby, conservators can actually encourage the growth of coral and marine life, which in turn creates a natural barrier that absorbs wave energy and deters trawling, effectively putting a protective blanket of nature around the ancient ruins. For monitoring, the focus has shifted to non-invasive technologies. Instead of frequent physical dives that can accidentally damage a site, teams now deploy permanent underwater sensor systems that can continuously monitor water clarity, current strength, temperature, and even sound, alerting authorities to any suspicious activity like the approach of unauthorized vessels or the sounds of dredging. The most powerful tool in the modern conservator's arsenal, however, is digital preservation. Through comprehensive 3D laser scanning and photogrammetry, teams can create incredibly detailed, millimeter-accurate virtual models of an entire site. This process is like taking a perfect, frozen-in-time photograph of the city exactly as it is today. These digital twins are far more than simple records. They are interactive databases where every stone, every artifact can be measured, analyzed, and studied from every conceivable angle without ever disturbing the original. This is crucial for sites that are imminently threatened. If a storm or human activity destroys a structure, its digital record remains, allowing future generations to continue their research and even experience the site through virtual reality. This technology also democratizes access, allowing students and researchers from around the world to conduct detailed analysis without the need for expensive travel or excavation permits. Of course, technology and good intentions are futile without a strong legal and social framework to support them. International treaties, particularly the 2001 UNESCO Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage, provide a vital legal backbone for these efforts, establishing ethical guidelines and encouraging cooperation between nations. However, a treaty is only as strong as the will to enforce it. This is where the role of the public becomes absolutely critical. Laws are ignored without oversight, and technology can be expensive to maintain. The most sustainable form of protection is fostering a sense of shared ownership and value within local communities and the wider world. When people understand that a sunken city is not just a pile of old rocks but a unique archive of human ingenuity and adaptation, they become its most passionate defenders. Educational programs, public outreach, and responsible tourism that generates local revenue create a powerful constituency for preservation. The ultimate goal is a multifaceted alliance where scientists provide the tools, policymakers provide the legal protection, and an engaged global community provides the enduring vigilance needed to ensure these silent cities continue to whisper their stories from the depths for centuries to come. As we resurface from the depths of history, the forgotten blueprints of ancient coastal cities stand as powerful monuments to humanity's dual nature, our breathtaking ingenuity and our profound vulnerability. These submerged plans are far more than just architectural relics. They are active, living textbooks. They offer us a masterclass in sustainable engineering, showing how to build in harmony with nature rather than against it. They teach us about resilience, demonstrating how societies have historically responded to environmental pressures, whether through adaptation, fortification, or sometimes strategic retreat. These lessons are not locked in the past. They are urgent, relevant guides for our own era of rising seas and climatic uncertainty, providing a long-term perspective that is desperately needed in our often short-sighted world. By committing to the continued exploration and preservation of these sites, we do more than just satisfy our curiosity. We become active participants in a grand, intergenerational conversation. We honor the legacy of the ingenious engineers, the ambitious planners, and the everyday citizens who walked those now silent streets. We ensure that their achievements and their struggles are not erased by time, neglect, or the very forces that claimed their homes. In protecting these underwater museums, we are also making a crucial investment in our own future. The data and wisdom extracted from the seabed directly inform modern coastal management, helping us build more resilient cities and develop smarter strategies for the challenges that lie ahead. This work bridges millennia, connecting the aspirations of our ancestors with the survival of our descendants. We encourage you to carry this sense of connection with you. Reflect on how these incredible discoveries resonate in your own world. Perhaps it will inspire you to support the vital conservation work of organizations dedicated to protecting our underwater heritage. Maybe it will lead you to learn more about the climate challenges facing your own local coastline. Or it could simply be a source of wonder, a reminder to look out at the horizon and marvel at the hidden histories that rest just beneath the waves, reminding us that there are always deeper layers to the world we think we know. We would love to hear your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. What hidden history lies near you? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the past, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more journeys into the mysteries that shape our world. Remember, the past is never truly lost. It is always present, waiting just below the surface for